I hope that you are doing well. I want to say Happy New Year to all of those I haven't spoken to. It is 2025, new year, new me, all of those things that people say. It's your year, and I truly do believe that part. As cliche as it sounds, it is your year if you want to make it yours. But I wanted to come on here and talk about why I stopped drinking. I've seen a lot of posts recently with people talking about doing dry January, also people talking about the benefits of not drinking. And I've seen a couple of posts with like different celebrities talking about, how not drinking has changed their lives. But I also want to just share my two piece because I stopped drinking, I think, what year is this? Now it's 2025. I think it was like 3 years ago now. I think it was 2022. Yeah. Back when I was in Las Vegas, which is funny because, there's plenty to do that involves drinks in Vegas, I should say. But, I did not set a New Year's resolution to stop drinking. I didn't even set a goal to stop drinking. It was never my intention to stop drinking. It actually naturally happened for me when I did a few things in the background. The reason why I stopped drinking is because I gave myself permission to show up authentically. I gave myself permission to begin saying no to things that I actually didn't want to do, to begin saying no to going places that I actually didn't want to be, to, begin to allow myself to show up authentically for myself. When I moved to Las Vegas, I moved there by myself. No family, no friends there, people would come visit regularly, but it was essentially just me, which was a gift because, it was that time and shift where I was so hungry to heal from some things, to get some weight off of me, etc. And so it really gave me that space to show up authentically for myself, with myself, by myself, and then, in community outside of that. And in doing so, there are so many things that just began to just fall off my life naturally. There were a lot of things that I realized both then and in retrospect, looking back at what that whole journey meant and what came out of it. There were a lot of things that had become a part of my life, had become a part of me, that had become a part of my habits and regular routines that were only there because I was in a certain position, because I was committed to showing up in a certain way, oftentimes not in the most authentic way. Now, granted, I wouldn't say I was being fake as we know it, the mean girl fake where you have two-face and you go show up this way and you're not that way. It was more so showing up in people pleasing, showing up in what I felt like I should or had to do. When you are growing up, as well as when you go to college and different spaces, when you're in corporate, there's often language about even what is connected with success. You have to do things this way. You need to show up in this way. You have to look this way, do things this way. And so you begin, because you're young, whether it be young in age or young in the field that you're going into or young in the stage of life that you're in, you begin to just take on those things as fact. It's like, okay, if this is what adulting looks like, I guess I better, take on that characteristic, take on this understanding, etc. And over time, you don't really realize how far away from the true you that you get. You don't really realize how far from your true desires that you get, because it's just been little things over time that now it's so many little things that you're no longer who you actually are. You don't even know what you actually want. You don't even know, what things you actually want to say yes to versus things that you just feel like you have to say yes to. I remember this post from a long time ago, my old Instagram page that I had posted, and it, I feel like that was a seed to the beginning. It said something to the effect of, if it involves fake smiling or fake laughing, I'm not coming. And I have lived by that quote since then. Now, granted, it took me some time to actually begin to walk that out, but that has been serious. If I have to go in there and pretend, I do not want to go. If I have to go in there and be a certain way that's different from who I am, then I don't want to go. So to bring that back to my original topic, because I don't want this to be super long, the reason why I stopped drinking was not because I said I'm going to do dry January. It's not because I said, okay, I'm going to stop drinking for 30 days. It was none of that. Literally none of that happened. It was never an intention. What naturally happened was when I gave myself the space to explore who I was and to begin saying no to the things that weren't that. and begin saying yes to the things that either A, I wanted to see if it was that, or that I already knew were that, it just naturally began to fall off. And one specific environment in which, it was birthed was karaoke. When I was in Vegas, I would go to karaoke every Wednesday, and sometimes more than that. But there was a specific place that I would go to karaoke every Wednesday, and we had like a little fam vibe going on there. There were a bunch of like aunties and uncles in there, good fam vibes. And we would just have a good time. Now, when I first started going, I didn't need to drink, but it was just a natural inclination. You're at a bar, whatever, and even though the vibes are good, it's just like, hey, yeah, sure, I'll have a drink. I wasn't overdoing it or anything like that. It was just a natural part of it. But over time, as I began to get more comfortable, and especially as I began to just get on stage and be myself and be able to like be carefree and like, not pretend, but to show up. And if I'm singing Beyonce, be Beyonce with all the choreography. If I'm singing, what else? I love Jill Scott. If I'm singing Jill Scott, be in the neo soul vibes, all of that, and just express myself in that artistic way with no hesitation, with no fear. Because I didn't know these people at the beginning. Like, I just showed up. I didn't know none of them. So it was kind of like, had nothing to lose. I didn't have to show up in a certain way because I was worried about what they would think of me and all of that. So even just walking in that level of freedom began to do shifts within me that I wouldn't realize until much later. And so over time, on those Wednesdays, I would just keep coming back and I would just drink less and less, to the point where it was just like, no, I'll just have water, or I'll just have cranberry juice, or whatever else. It just really happened naturally as I allowed myself to just show up as me. And what was a blessing in that specific space was the way just being me was received. And obviously, we don't want to put our freedom and authenticity in the hands and validation of others. So I never intentionally did that. But because I was in a space of healing that place within me, healing the place in me that was willing to show up authentically, it was such a safe space to do that, and such a safe space to see like, hey, it is okay to begin to walk in this way. It was a safe space to begin to blossom in a different way. And that experience has reverberated throughout so much more of my life. And there's still definitely places and spaces where I have to coach myself through like, hey, you don't have to show up in a certain way. You don't have to do it just because someone's expecting you to. You don't have to go to this place that you don't feel is in alignment. You don't have to do things in a certain way just because you feel like that's what you have to do in order to be successful, But that experience was really how and why I stopped drinking. The why was because I gave myself permission to be me. Was because I gave myself permission to stop showing up in spaces that I felt like I had to drink in order to be in. Let's just be honest. Some of us drink just because we enjoy it and it's fun and we like mixology and, we're the fun bartender and we like whatever, the social aspect. But then there are some of us, and maybe, some within the same person have different experiences where you feel like, oh no, if I'm gonna go up in there, we're gonna need like a shot before I do that. We're gonna need a little drink before I do that. Even karaoke, for example. There's a lot of people that I would take with me, when people come to visit, and they're like, oh no, I'm not getting up on that stage unless I get to this level, I can't do it. Like, I'm not gonna do it. And I feel like, no judgment to them. That's even a testament to the fact that what you're essentially saying is, and you know what, let me not assume, but in most cases, what they're saying is, I care too much about what they may think of me if I show up there with my terrible voice and, my wild performance. So I'm going to need to drink so that my inhibitions and my care about what people are going to think to come down before I even think about getting on stage. Same thing happens with being out. I know for me, it looked like I was never afraid to get on stage, sober or not. That was just my thing. Karaoke has been my thing since I was like 6. But in other spaces, when it would come to going to parties and being more social, not dance parties, because I love to dance too, but like when it comes to like being more social, there was a time when I'm like, oh no, we're going to need just, a glass of wine or something like that so that, the nervousness can come down and, so that I can feel like I can just show up without worrying about what people think. And that's such a space of bondage to have to use something in order to engage, again. If you enjoy drinking, you enjoy mixology, you enjoy, different aspects of drinking just because, that's one thing. But when you realize that it becomes a crutch, when you realize like, hey, you're only drinking because you're going to this space that if you weren't drinking, you probably wouldn't go to, then that's a conversation to kind of have with yourself. And that's the conversation that I kind of had to have with myself. And really, it was less of a conversation, more of a commitment to the authenticity, where it was like, hey, if I'm seeing that I actually don't want to go, why don't I just give myself permission not to go? You know, if I'm seeing that in order to be in that space, it'll require me to be a fake version of me, then why don't I either A, not go, or B, commit to, hey, I don't really care how it's received, but I can't come in here fake, so I'm just going to be me, you know? And in that process, I really realized, like, drinking is not in alignment with that version of me, the version of me that's willing to show up as I am, who I am, and not care as much about what people think. And I say as much because in the beginning, I can't pretend that it went from 0 to 100, where it was like, I care so much and now I care not at all. There was definitely some in between, and there's still, you know, some in between, more so on the opposite side. But anyway, I'm rambling. You know, when I began to come into that space, there were certain spaces I just wouldn't go anymore. And there were certain things that I just really wasn't willing to do anymore. And it did two things for me. It freed me from having to show up fake, but it also allowed me to truly enjoy those things that I really enjoy doing, and to be able to do it sober, because I realized, like, hey, I actually enjoy this. So for example, the karaoke story I gave, like, I would go in there, have fun, be amongst people that were drinking, whatever else, and I didn't mind because I loved that space. I loved the environment. I loved doing karaoke. I loved, you know, dancing in between the songs, all those things. Like, it was good space, good people, good vibes, things that I actually wanted to be a part of. And then I stopped going to spaces that I really realized, like, hey, I don't actually like this. I actually don't want to do this, you know? There are times when you have to sacrifice, but a lot of us spend too much time sacrificing in spaces and places and for reasons we really don't have to. Like, there's literally no reason for us to be doing that. Like, no one said you have to go to the club and be amongst drunk people that you really don't want to be around just because that's what people do when they are over 21. You know, like, if that's what you like to do, cool. But if you know that you really don't like it, that's not really an area to, you know, be sacrificing for. And so, long story long, because now I'm just going on, you know, give yourself permission to show up as you in different spaces, and you will notice how much weights fall off of your shoulder. You will also notice how much certain habits may not be in alignment. You know, you will also notice if substances have been your thing, that you may not need them anymore. Both, you know, illicit substances, as they call them, I guess, or, you know, whatever, as well as, you know, medications and things. Now, granted, you definitely want to talk to your doctor, all of those things about the biochemistry of getting off medications. But sometimes we are on substances because we have not dealt with the root issue. And a lot of times that root issue is showing up or not showing up authentically, you know, whether it be authentically as who we are, authentically owning what we truly want, authentically in owning our no and allowing ourselves to give our no, authentically in just alignment overall and what we desire our life to be like. And so that misalignment shows up in our bodies. It shows up in, you know, how we show up or don't. And so, long story long, I stopped drinking when I decided, like, hey, I'm going to give myself permission to just be me and to explore what that looks like and to honor my no's and lean more into my yeses. And naturally, drinks just fell off. And I am going to make another video one day soon about how I stopped smoking, because that was definitely a big part of my life. As many of you guys know, have a whole degree in it and everything. And I'm going to talk about that too. It's similar, but a little bit different. A little bit more nuanced on that side. So I will talk about that more. But if you are doing dry January, think about the reasons why you're doing it. And as you do go through the journey of not drinking for 30 days or whatever it is that it looks like for you, you know, explore where you choose to show up when you're not drinking and where you don't. Choose to explore the reasons why you drink. Again, is it just because it's fun and you enjoy it? Or is it because, you know, some of the other reasons I listed? And then when it comes to January 31st and you're getting ready to go into February 1st, you get to decide what you want to do after that. And I hope that no matter which decision you choose, whether it be to go back to drinking or not, that you do whatever is in true alignment with who you really are and how you really want to show up. That is the most important thing out of everything. It's not really about the drinks, or you shouldn't make it about the drinks. It should be about you, the life you desire, the life you deserve, and go forward in that authentic way. So I'm going to wrap up here. Oh, I do want to say this. In the Restored Guided Journal, there is a chapter called Detox from the Dead Things. I talk about in that chapter specifically exploring personality traits that are really not a part of our true, essence, our true identity. Those things that have become a part of us just because we were told that, hey, this is what success looks like, or hey, this is how you have to show up, or hey, I've been people pleasing, and exploring that. So if this is something that you want to explore during dry January or any other time, which I definitely encourage you to, order your Restored Journal today. There are questions and activations that will really help guide you to that place of authenticity and help you to show up in a way that is more in alignment with who you really are, your true essence. And so I will wrap up there. restoredjournal.com is where you can order that. And I hope that you have a healthy and wholesome day, a new year that is filled with joy and love and success and prosperity in the way that is in alignment with you. And I will talk to you soon, God willing. Love you bunches.